Good morning, children. Today, I'm going to do a summary of the first chapter of the Indian economy because many of you were not there in the earlier classes and some claim they don't have the study material for chapters 1 and 2 and all that. So today I will give you a summary of the chapter number 1, which is the Indian economy on the eve of independence. And when I give you this summary, you can take it down in notes so that it will help you down for your study. Okay, so the summary of the chapter. First of all, so you can write the chapter 1, State of Indian economy on the eve of independence. Indian economy on the eve of independence. And that the first thing we'll talk about is what was the state of agriculture? What was the state of agriculture on the eve of independence? We will first discuss what was the state of agriculture on the eve of independence. You know what is eve of independence? Before independence. What was India's state of agriculture before independence? First point you can write is backwardness of Indian agriculture. We said the Indian agriculture was backward. Why? Because of these follow points. You can put A point, you could say because of low level of productivity, because whatever agriculture we were doing, the productivity level was very low. So the low level of productivity. B point could be high degree of vulnerability. VULNER, vulnerability, ABILITY. High degree of vulnerability. What do you mean by vulnerability? Now, the Indian agriculture was dependent on many factors that time. We didn't have proper irrigations. So, what were we dependent on mostly? We were mostly dependent on rain. If the monsoons were good, we had good rains, then we would get a good crop. Otherwise, if there was a drought or a season of dryness, then there would be not much crop grown or no crop grown, and farmers would be, or there would be a situation of a famine. So we were vulnerable. Then at that time, there was no proper fertilizers, pesticides, which could protect the farmers' crops from damage from pest, or there was not enough of fertilizers to improve the agriculture. So we were very vulnerable. Vulnerable means we were very open to many attacks from various sources. Okay. Then the third could be uneconomic. Third could be uneconomic and fragmented land holdings. Uneconomic and fragmented land holdings. What does this mean, children? It simply means that the land which was there, they were going from smaller to smaller smaller plot size when they had to be distributed among the family members. Okay, a piece of land belongs to a family, which is the father, and he has 3 or 4 sons, 5 sons. Now he has to give everyone a share. So everyone a share means he had to divide his land. Okay, this part is for you, this part is for you. So there was land fragmentation, and this was uneconomical because you could not do much on a small piece of land. So the crops also which was produced would be uneconomical, not enough. So it was uneconomic and the land was fragmented land holdings at that time. And the fourth could be dominance of subsistence farming. Subsistence farming. Dominance of subsistence farming. Now, all these 4 points led to the backwardness of the Indian agriculture before independence or on the eve of independence. This was the state of India's agriculture. Then the second point we talk about stagnation of Indian agriculture. Stagnation of Indian agriculture. When we talk of the stagnation means no progress of the Indian agriculture. How we can talk about it or why we can talk about it? Because of these following points. Which are those following points? A point would be a gulf between the owners of the soil and the tillers of the soil. A gulf between the owners of the soil and the tillers of the soil. Now understand this point. What do you mean by a gulf? Gulf is a huge wide gap. Okay, there was a gap between owners of the soil. What do you mean by the owners of the soil? People who owned the land and people who really worked on the land were two different people. So the people who owned the land did not work on it. They gave the land out to these poor farmers to work. And so somebody else is working on it, but the owners would get maximum of the share because they said this is our land. So there was a big gulf, big divide between the owners and the real tillers. And the poor people who really worked on the farm, on the agricultural land, they did not have any claim over that land, no on the produce. They were just given as hired. I have given it to you on hire. You are using my land, work on it, and then this much is mine, the rest is yours. So there was a wide gulf between the owners of the land and the tillers of the land. So there was a stagnation there. Second reason could be the land revenue system, B point, the land revenue system under the British Raj. Under the British Raj. What does this mean? How was the land revenue system? We had the Jagidars, they were the owners and they had to collect taxes or lagan from the poor peasants, from poor farmers. And they did not bother whether they had a good crop, the farmers had a good crop or no. They would stand there on the right time and say, pay the tax. Why? Because they had to deposit these taxes to the British. So they were doing a job for them. And if they did not do it, the Jagidars probably would be taken away from them and given it to somebody else. So they applied force, they forced the people, they forced the farmers to pay a tax which was collected on behalf of the British. So there was a land revenue system under the British Raj which was not very much in favor of Indian agriculture. People would beg and plead, we did not have enough rain, our crops have failed, how are we to pay the tax? But they would not listen. They would simply say, this is what we have to collect, pay, or then. Okay, so this was how agriculture was at stagnation. The third point or the C point would be forced commercialization of agriculture. Forced commercialization of agriculture. Now what does this mean? It means their farmers were encouraged and forced to grow cash crops. Why? Because the British would want ready raw materials to ship out from India to their ready-made to their industries, which was in England. So what happening? People were forced to grow cash crops and less of food crops, resulting in shortage of food crops. And they would only concentrate on cash crops. What are cash crops? Crops which are grown for ready cash, like cotton, jute, sugarcane for converting into sugar. These are all cash crops. So they were forced commercialization of agriculture. So this was the state of the Indian agriculture sector on the eve of independence. There was a backwardness and there was a stagnation of the Indian agriculture. Now we come to the next, which is the state of the industrial sector. State of industrial sector on the eve of independence. State of the industrial sector on the eve of independence. The first point we can say is there was a decay in handicraft industry. Decay in handicraft industry. So the handicraft industries gradually, slowly and slowly were removed by how? Goods being produced by machines, which were cheaper, better. Remember, handicrafts are goods prepared by the hand, and it used to take a long time. The artisans used to do things with their hand, and they were world famous handicrafts of India. But slowly and slowly, these handicrafts industries were crippled with the introduction of machines, because machines would do work cheaper, turn out the work cheaper and faster, and probably with a better finish. Second point would be limited growth of the public sector. Limited growth of the public sector enterprises. So we had a very limited growth of public sector. Public sectors are the sectors owned by the government, run by the government. So we had a very limited growth of public sector. Third, lack of basic and heavy industries. So we did not have any heavy industries or even the basic industries necessary for the growth of industrialization before independence. We did not have the infrastructure for that. Then there was a twofold motive, write down, there was a twofold motive to stagnate industrial sector. Two-fold motive to stagnate industrial sector, and brackets you can write Britishers' exploitation. First point under this you can write was to exploit India's wealth, of raw materials and primary products like cotton and jute. India was reduced to being a supplier. India was reduced to being a supplier of raw materials which was needed as industrial inputs for the industries in Britain. So, India was reduced to being only a supplier of raw materials. Raw materials to whom? To the Britain for their industries, because they were having an industrial revolution at that time. So they needed lots of raw materials for their industries to keep on working. And from where to get the raw materials? India was reduced to being the supplier of raw materials for the industrial revolution, which was in Britain. Then the second point under this heading could be to exploit India, write down, to exploit India as a potential market for the industrial products of Britain. This led to the destruction of Indian handicrafts in India and industrialization in Britain. Industrialization in Britain. So you see the two-fold motives. Once, one was to reduce India to being just the supplier of raw materials, because they wanted raw materials for their industries, because they were having an industrial revolution in Britain. Now, once the goods are produced in Britain, where to sell them? India was found as a ready-made market to sell their finished goods again back in India. So when they bought their goods back in India, what was happening? They were destroying our handicrafts of India, because machine-made goods, cheaper, faster, more in quantity, and probably the finish of the goods would be a little better than handmade products. All this led to slowly and slowly destroying the Indian handicrafts in India, and at the same time they were having a industrialization in Britain, because they were getting sale for their goods. India was a ready-made market for their goods. So this was the state of India's industrialization on the eve, before the eve of independence. Third topic of the chapter we will touch upon is the state of foreign trade. The state of foreign trade on the eve of independence. So what was our state of foreign trade? First point we can say is India became net exporter of primary products and importer of finished goods. And the second was the Britishers enjoyed a monopoly control of India's foreign trade. So they enjoyed a monopoly, they had the sole right on India's foreign trade. The third point could be the surplus trade, but only to benefit the Britishers and the drain of India's wealth. So any surplus trade we had, we were allowed with England or Britain and a few more countries, but the surplus trade was only to benefit the Britishers, and there was a drain of India's wealth. This was the state of our foreign trade. We only became a net exporter of primary products and importer of all finished goods. That's why our industries could not develop, because we were not encouraged. We were only made to sell our raw materials and we were buying all the finished products. Okay. The next underheading under this chapter would be the state of demographic condition. Excuse me. The state of the demographic condition. First, let us talk about infant mortality rate. Infant mortality rate was quite high at about 218 per thousand, which means if there were 1,000 children born, 218 died. Infant mortality rate. Let us talk second about life expectancy. How long did people live at that time? Life expectancy. It was very low at 44 years. Maximum persons lived up to 44 years, after which they died. The life expectancy at that time is only 44 years. Talk of literacy rate. Literacy rate. It was less than 16%, 16%. So this was the demographic condition of India. Now, next topic we can talk about in this chapter is positive impact of British rule in India. The positive impact of the British rule in India. First, efficient system of administration. Efficient system of administration. And second, we had monetary exchange system. Monetary exchange system was introduced, brought about by the Britishers. Third, commercial outlook of the farmers. Fourth would be employment opportunities. And fifth could be famine controls. Famine controls. So these were all a summary of the chapter put in a nutshell and given to you. Okay. So we talked about the state of India's agriculture. We talked about India's industries. We talked about India's foreign trade. We talked about the demographic conditions of India. And in the end, we spoke about what were the positive impacts of the British rule in India. This is all about in your chapter. So summary wise, we have brought it down for you. So Besides that, you can also go back to the notes which is given to you the year, months, okay, and this will help you while preparing for your exam. Okay, children, we'll stop till here and we'll meet again tomorrow. Okay.